Hello everyone, this is CodeAlpha. My channel will provide an in-depth, comprehensive, step-by-step instructions on how to code using Python for beginners. Various topics will be covered along with step-by-step instructions to chosen problems every week. Without further ado, let's start this journey together. Alright, first off, in Python, a very fundamental concept is putting comments. So whenever we want to put comments, we need to use this number sign. And whatever we write in this comment won't be part of the program. It won't be a command. Therefore, it can be used to explain what a program does, for instance. Okay, so I will be explaining stuff such as the different types in Python, such as the string, integers, and floats. So I will put them in comments because I don't want them to be part of my program. So what are strings? Strings are a set of characters, such as the DNA sequence, for instance, right? So ATCG, for instance, and the name of person. And what's very important to notice here is that strings are enclosed within quotation marks. Now let's move on to integers. What are integers? Integers are numbers such as 5, 83, 45. Okay? And now let's move on to float. What is a float? Float is a number that has a decimal. So 4.53, for example, 1.01. Okay. So what's the difference between float and integers? That float has a decimal number while integers don't. And what's very important to notice here is that integers and floats are never enclosed by quotation marks. Whenever integers and floats are enclosed by quotation marks, they become strings. So, in order to allow Python to tell you what is the type of a certain value, you need to do the following. You need to do print quotation marks, type, open quotation, then put whatever value you want to check. So let's say 4.53, close quotation, close quotation. Then click on run. Okay. So it will say that it is a float. However, if we put 4.53 within quotations, Python is going to say that it is a string. Same thing applies for integers, okay? So now let's talk about the operations that can be done in Python, okay? So whenever we want to do addition, we use the plus, okay? So for example, if we want to print 5 plus 10, we would expect to have 15. And that is what we get. That is what Python outputs. If we want to perform subtraction, we use minus sign. Okay, so let's print something. Let's try 12 minus 7. We're expecting a 5, okay? And that's what it prints here. Now it prints 15 here as well because we didn't erase this print 5 plus 10 command here. So let's just erase that to avoid confusion. When we want to do division, we use the slash sign, okay? So for instance, print 18 divided by 2. We're expecting a 9, and that's what Python outputs, okay? If we want to do multiplication, we use the asterisk sign. Okay, we use the asterisk. For instance, print 4 asterisk 3. This should give 12, and that is what we get. Okay, all right. So what is the priority of these operations? It follows the normal priorities, which is MDAS. All right, MDAS, that implies that multiplication happens first, then division, then addition, then subtraction. Okay, how about exponents? How do we do exponents? Okay, so for exponents, we use double asterisk. Okay, so for example, print 8 double asterisk 2. So 8 to the power of 2, that should give us 64. So let's check. 64. Now, a very important concept to not forget is whenever we have a float, if we have a float within our equation, then the answer will always be a float. Okay, so let's see here. Let me give an example. So print 6.0 minus 2. So 6.0 is a float, 2 is an integer. Since there is a float in our equation, the answer will be a float. So let's see. It gives us 4.0. However, if we put only 6, 6 is an integer, 2 is an integer, it will give us an answer that is an integer, which is 4. Okay? So now let's talk about concatenation. What is concatenation? Concatenation is when we want to combine values together. So let's try a classic example. So print hello, and when we want to concatenate, we need to use the plus sign. Hello world. Okay, so let's run this. And as we can see the output, there is no space, okay? And that's what concatenation does. It doesn't give space. You have to manually put it. So in order to achieve that space, we can put a space here. Okay, now let's see. There you go. We get a space, or we can have that normally and put the space on world instead. We run and we get the same answer. Now, a very tricky concept here is if we put 6 plus 4, for instance. Is this concatenation or an addition? This will be an addition because it's an integer and an integer, right? There you go, it gives 10. However, if you convert the 6 into a string and put a plus sign, and you convert the 4 into a string and a string, right? This won't give 10 anymore. Instead, it would give 64. There you go. Okay? All right. So next concept I want to talk about is the concept of variables. Variables are very important. So what exactly are variables? Variables are spaces within the memory of the computer. And within these variables, we assign values to them. Okay? And it is up to the user's discretion to whether change the value associated with the variable in the future or not. Okay? So I will give an example. So let's say we have a variable called first number. And now we need to assign a value to this variable. So let's say we assign the value 12, which is an integer. Now let's put another variable called second number. and let's assign the value 8. Okay. All right. Now let's introduce a third variable called total, which will take the first number plus the second number. Okay. So basically, this will be equal to 12 plus 8, right? But we're just writing it in terms of the variable names. And now let's try to print total. Okay, so we expect this to give 20 because first number is 12 plus the second number, which is 8, which would give 20. And that is what we get. If we try to print the first number, it will call this variable, therefore it would print 12. And then if we call the second number, it will print 8. There we go. Now, I talked about trying to change the value of the variables. So let me give an example. If we say, for instance, first number, copying this variable name over here, and let's try to change that into 3. Okay, and let's leave everything alone. Okay, so if we want to print the second number, right? So let's go back from the beginning. Here we assigned first number as 12. Here we assign second number as 8. Then here we try to find the total, and that value will be attributed to the variable named total. And here we change the value for this variable called first number. And here we try to print second number. But on the step before, it's the first number that was changed. Therefore, the second number remains 8. Therefore, if we execute this command, this will give 8. There we go. However, if we print first number, right, it should give 3 and not 12. Okay, because we changed the value of the first number. So it gives 3. However, if we put the print first number here, so now there is 2 print first number and position on line 23 and on line 26. Now what do you think the print first number is going to give us output on line 23? That would give 12, right? Because at that step, the first number, it has a value of 12, okay? But on line 26, what do you think it will give? It will give 3 because we changed the value of the first number from 12 to 3. So here, the output of Python should be 12 and 3. So let's see the output. So there you go, 12 and 3. All right, so I have actually prepared let's say we have a program that asks for 3 variables: the name of the person, the age of the person, and the favorite food of the person. And we want to make a sentence that says the name of the person is the age, years old, and loves eating the favorite food of the person. And we want to use concatenations to build that sentence. How would we do that problem? So this is how I would approach that problem, right? So let's just delete this for now because we finished talking about it. So let's say we make a variable named person name. Okay, So let's say the person's name is Mike. Okay, let's make a variable called age, right? Let's say his age is 23 years old, right? Okay, we need to put an integer, not a string. And favorite food. Let's say he loves eating pasta. Okay. Okay. So now the problem asks us to have an output that says the sentence that I said before, right? So an approach is to put person name, which is calling this variable here. So whenever we try to print this, it will give Mike as output. And we want to try to use concatenation. So person name is plus age plus years old and loves eating plus favorite food. Okay, favorite food. There you go. So let's try what this is going to give, right? So, okay. So, here it's not going to work, right? Because the age is an integer and is and years old and loves eating, those are strings. So what we want to do is to convert this into string, right? So now the age is a string, right? So now it can concatenate. In order to concatenate, all of this needs to be string. It didn't work before because 23 without quotation marks are integer. But if you put quotation marks, 23 becomes a string. And now this should concatenate. So, as we can see, the output is a little bit, it doesn't give a good output, right? Because just like what I shown before, concatenation you need to take into account for spaces. Okay, so here, what we can do is to put a space here, put a space here, and put a space here. So let's try that out. Oh, I missed a space here. Okay, there you go. So what happened here, the output is Mike is 23 years old and loves eating pasta. Okay, so what we can do now is change, for instance. Let's say Elizabeth, right? 20 years old. Let's say she's 20 years old. Let's say she loves eating fried chicken, right? So we change the value of those variables. And let's see the output. There you go. Elizabeth is 20 years old and loves eating fried chicken. Okay, so that is all for this video. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'll be uploading more videos in the future.